on transcending justice, right? Is that entire concept just like being meek? Like, even though I can enact my justice, I choose not to.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought in terms of meekness before, but I think meekness is a good term for that. Essentially, what it's saying is that, you know, it's taking justice and separating justice for others versus justice for yourself. And what we're saying is we're not talking about doing away with justice for others, and we're not talking about doing away with justice for yourself either. But what we're talking about is saying we continue to care about justice for others, and we're willing to pay for the injustice against us ourselves. That's what Jesus did for us. Jesus says, no, I'm not just saying discarding justice. The justice is still important. The justice must be met. You must have the payment for injustice, but I'll pay for that myself. And that's the thing, as human nature, we're so unwilling to do. We're saying, no, you're going to pay for that injustice. You caused it. You're going to pay for it. And this transcending justice is the ability to say, I continue to care about justice for you. I continue to care about justice for others. But when you commit an injustice against me, through the forgiveness I've been given through Christ, I have the ability to say, I will absorb that injustice and not require it from your hands.
And I've heard you say that before, and not just the ability, but you said it in a way that I will not forget. I think I told my wife when I got home was, I have the freedom.
The freedom, right.
To pay for your injustice.
Exactly.
I never thought of it like that. I'm like, wow, that totally shifts it.
Right.
That I have the freedom now.
Because in your human nature, you will not do that. But Christ gives you the freedom to be able to do that.
This was one lesson and one idea that Jody and I had to sort of wrap our minds around, because we kind of came at it from different views of justice. I was looking at the word from a more positive frame of reference, and he kind of had another thing in mind, and it took some emails and discussion about defining our terms to really get down. And I think the class should enjoy maybe the discussion of kinds of justice, and I think the distinction that Jody makes between the justice or the righteousness that we seek for on behalf of others who have been wronged versus demanding our rights.
Right, exactly.
That we're kind of dealing with. And it's so easy once you start becoming rights oriented, demanding your rights, you become vindictive. You fall into this part where the Bible refers to as vengeance belongs to the Lord. It doesn't belong to us. So on the one hand, we're upholding this idea of Micah's famous saying, you know, how do we, what's the basics, what's the fundamentals of relationship with God, to
love mercy,
to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with our God. So we must do justice. But the beauty of what we're describing in this lesson is that, you know where the justice is? The cross is justice. It's the justice of God. It's where it happens. And in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word for forgive was literally to carry or to bear. So we see it most vividly with the Day of Atonement, and there was the two goats. Remember, one was killed, his blood was taken in the most holy place. There was another called the scapegoat. And they laid their hands upon him and said that it carried the sins of Israel out into the wilderness.
And that was forgiveness.
And that carry, that word carry, he has borne our griefs, carried our sorrows, it speaks of in Isaiah 53. This is the justice of God. He says, okay, it's on me. Here is all the injustice out there. Someone's got to carry this. Someone's got to answer and bring restitution. And he says, I'm going to take this upon myself. I'm going to pay all of these debts so that we can start fresh in reconciliation, because it's these debts that lie between us that keep us from being reconciled, that keep us from being joined. And so this study is really maybe my favorite of the whole bunch, because it invites us to sort of think about justice not from our human sort of sets of, you know, we're not far from the Statue of Liberty, Lady Justice, and the scales, you know, where we want everything to be equal and we want everything to be fair. As Christians now, because of Christ, we can work towards justice for others. We can feed the poor. We can look at where people are being mistreated. We can look at immigration in a passionate way. We can look at a lot of different things from the standpoint of trying to find justice for those who are hurting. At the same time, we recognize that we're children of the cross, and that means that we're willing to take the pain, take the burden upon ourselves, as Christ has taught us to carry. And to see how justice is done when we're able to love like that. And reconciliation can open up and we can see new life. And I think it's beautiful.
I think it goes
challenging, but beautiful.
It goes back to the three natures that I was talking about earlier of the, a giving nature, a taking nature, or a fair nature. And to realize that the fair nature is not really a true nature. It's really either a good nature or a taking nature, a giving nature or a taking nature, that we're kind of in this search for an identity essentially, and like I said, we can become taking on our own, but God is inviting us, giving us His nature so that we can transcend this fair, this justice-oriented nature to become to have a giving nature. And again, it's something that none of us are able to do on our own. It's only, and even with Christ's Spirit in us, we still have that resistance because we're still learning to let go. We're still learning to surrender. We're still learning to sacrifice and be willing to sacrifice. But that's the beauty of only God is good, but He's willing to share His goodness with us and give us His good nature if we're willing to surrender and accept it.